The National Desk, America's News Now. Why some say it's a win for the president's son. Plus,
we will do everything in our power to effect a rescue.
Breaking tonight, time running out in the search for 5 people stuck in a missing tourist sub. How many hours of oxygen the Coast Guard says they have left? And life-threatening heat bearing down right now on the U.S. The new millions of people at risk as scorching temps grip parts of the United States while severe storms threaten other areas of the country. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez, and we start with new information on Hunter Biden's plea deal. In just the last 2 hours, the president making his first public comment on the case, responding to some questions shouted by reporters during an event in California. Take a listen.
President, have you spoken to your son today?
I'm very proud of my son.
The president did not elaborate there. With this plea deal, Hunter Biden now appears to have avoided jail time by agreeing to plead guilty to tax and felony gun charges. Kayla Gaskins joins us now from Washington with how that deal was reached and how the president's harshest critics are responding.
Hunter Biden's plea deal means he'll likely avoid prison time.
After 5 years, this is pretty anticlimactic. I think this is a big victory for the Biden team.
These deals, the result of a 5-year investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware, led by Trump-appointed prosecutor David Weiss. Critics saying the first son got off easy because of who his dad is.
He failed to pay millions of dollars in taxes that he evaded. These are felony charges, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find cases where other individuals engaged in the same kind of tax evasion ended up only getting misdemeanor charges.
House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer calling it a slap on the wrist. Former President Donald Trump equating it to a traffic ticket, saying it's further proof of a corrupt DOJ. Speaker Kevin McCarthy backing the sentiment.
If you are the president's leading political opponent, the DOJ tries to literally put you in jail and give you prison time. If you are the president's son, you get a sweetheart deal. Hunter
Biden's attorney Chris Clark emailing us a statement saying they believe this deal resolves the investigation, adding Hunter believes it's important to take responsibility for the mistakes he made. A White House spokesperson saying, quote, the president and first lady love their son and support him as he continues to rebuild his life. The president defending his son during an interview last month.
My son's done nothing wrong. I trust him. I have faith in him.
The tax and gun charges giving additional validity to the contents of the infamous Hunter Biden laptop, despite initial efforts by intelligence officials to discredit the laptop as disinformation.
There were also emails from the laptop that were included in the evidence. In other words, the Department of Justice admitted pretty early on that the laptop was genuine and these emails were genuine.
Much of the money Hunter failed to pay taxes on came from the Ukrainian energy company Burisma. These payments at the center of the House Oversight Committee's probe into the Biden family finances. An investigation Republicans say they're determined to continue. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
You heard from the House Speaker there. Well, dozens of other Republicans also sharing their thoughts as well. Representative Jim Jordan saying 2 tiers of justice and Senator J.D. Vance doubling down on his plans to stall any upcoming judicial nominees. House and Senate Democrats also responding tonight. Representative Jamie Raskin, the top Democrat on the House Oversight panel, saying in part, quote, this development reflects the Justice Department's continued institutional independence in following the evidence of actual crimes and enforcing the rule of law. Senator Chris Coons reacting as well, saying that he is, quote, encouraged that Hunter is taking responsibility for his actions. We'll, of course, be following developments on this story throughout the night. You can stay up to date 24/7 at our website, thenationaldesk.com. And, of course, do not forget to join us for the late edition of TND. Check your local listings for when it airs in your city or town. Breaking tonight, the Coast Guard now says the 5 people on board a missing tourist sub have just 40 hours of oxygen left right now. They said more ships and planes have joined in the search, but they have not found any sign of it so far. The Coast Guard did not say if that leaves them enough time to conduct a rescue once they locate that vessel. At this point, they say all of their efforts are focused simply on just trying to find where it's at. Private companies with additional underwater search capabilities will be arriving at that search site within hours, and they'll be able to conduct more deep water searches around the Titanic's wreckage. Now, the Coast Guard is staging equipment so that they can quickly respond.
Getting salvage equipment on scene is a top priority. Unified Command is working through that to prioritize what equipment we can get there. There is a full court press effort to get equipment on scene as quickly as we can.
Well, tonight, family members and colleagues have identified the men on board. Hamish Harding is a British explorer with extreme expedition experience. Shahzada Daoud and his son were on a trip to see the wreckage. And Paul-Henri Nogelet is an experienced diver and an expert on the Titanic. The fifth person on board is Stockton Rush, the CEO of the company leading that voyage. The Coast Guard leading the multi-agency international effort now. They've already searched 7,600 square miles, which is larger than the state of Connecticut. Happening today for the third day in a row, more than 30 million people are on alert for dangerously high temperatures. Live radar here showing almost all of Texas under an excessive heat watch. The temperature will feel like well over 100 degrees in areas you see there marked in pink. These alerts lasting through tomorrow evening. Healthcare workers across Texas right now urging people to think twice before they go outside in these extreme temperatures. And if you do, be sure to be prepared. Already this week, hospitals in San Antonio have seen more than 36 people arrive at the emergency room for heat-related issues. Several of them had to be admitted for further treatment. One doctor telling our reporters that there are some key symptoms you need to be on the lookout for.
Once it progresses to any sort of confusion, maybe severe weakness, severe muscle spasms, that's when it becomes an ER visit, freestanding ER, or perhaps go into the hospital ER.
Dr. Patton says children under 4 and adults over 65 are at the biggest risk of heat stroke complications. A heat stroke causes about 700 deaths every year, making it the most deadly dangerous weather situation. Meantime, in Oklahoma, thousands of people there are going through this without electricity right now. Crews still working around the clock to restore power in Tulsa after severe weather over the weekend. In Oklahoma alone, there are more than 150,000 outages right now. Some other states dealing with those storm-related issues as well. Take a look at this map here. You have Texas and Louisiana seeing at least 50,000 outages. Meantime, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Florida are reporting more than 10,000. Developing now, former President Donald Trump could go on trial in just a matter of months in his classified documents case. Judge Eileen Cannon, a Trump appointee, has set an August 14th trial date. Now, she expects the trial to run for about 2 weeks, but it's possible the defense, the prosecution, or both could request a delay. Trump faces 37 felony counts for retaining classified government documents after leaving the White House. He maintained he did nothing wrong, saying on Fox News yesterday that he's not concerned. Meanwhile, Trump's attorney, John Eastman, could lose his law license. Eastman testified in his defense at the State Bar of California's hearing that began today. The bar accuses him of making false and misleading statements in an effort to help Trump stay in power. Eastman's attorney says the move is part of an effort to punish attorneys opposing the Biden administration. The hearing is expected to last at least 8 days. New tonight, former special counsel John Durham making the trip to Capitol Hill, telling lawmakers behind closed doors about his 4-year investigation into how and why America's top law enforcement agency launched its probe into connections between the 2016 Donald Trump campaign and Russia.
After a 4-year investigation, John Durham concluded that the probe, known as Crossfire Hurricane, never should have happened. His 300-page report detailing missteps, miscommunications, and mishandling of uncorroborated information that came in part from Hillary Clinton's campaign, combined with, quote, confirmation bias, where people at the FBI accepted information and evidence that is consistent with what they believe to be true, while ignoring or rejecting information that challenges those beliefs.
The FBI failed to uphold their mission of strict fidelity to the law.
Republicans say the report proved their longtime claims of a two-tiered system of justice, which didn't treat allegations about Hillary Clinton or Hunter Biden in the same way.
They didn't prosecute, they didn't go after these folks in all of these other instances, but in the one, you go after President Trump.
While the system within the FBI has already drastically changed, according to Director Chris Wray, top Republicans hoping Durham's testimony this week will help prevent future such investigations they have deemed politically motivated.
When your government's lying to you, when your government is telling you that something has happened that has not happened, that's when our committee has to be involved.
That notion central to former President Trump's defense in his current legal troubles over his mishandling of classified documents.
This was a weaponization of politics. This was a weaponization of the White House.
His former attorney general adamant he and those defending him are wrong in this case.
Their basic argument really isn't to defend his conduct because Trump's conduct is indefensible. What they're really saying is he should get a pass because Hillary Clinton got a pass 6 or 7 years ago. If you want to restore the rule of law and equal justice, you don't do it by further derogating from justice.
So John Durham is set to testify publicly before the House Judiciary Committee tomorrow, where GOP lawmakers plan to push him on why certain officials accused of wrongdoing weren't charged, why certain pieces of evidence were prioritized while others were ignored. Meanwhile, Democrats are expected to call the findings old news and a waste of taxpayer dollars. Eugene?
So, Christine, why 2 trips to Capitol Hill for John Durham?
Yeah, it's interesting, especially for someone who spent a lot of his career sort of in private, out of the public eye. Well, today's meeting was behind closed doors with the House Intelligence Committee because there was a small portion of his final report that was classified. So presumably that's what was discussed. Now, tomorrow will be public testimony. And even though it's about this previous probe, we expect House Republicans to try to use the opportunity to undermine the FBI as having been politically motivated.
Okay, Christine Frizzell at the Capitol. Thanks so much. Coming up, a tractor-trailer thief on the run while he led Texas troopers on a high-speed chase. Then medical experts coming out with new mental health screening recommendations for Americans, the disorders they're adding to the list, and the age groups impacted. Plus, we're taking the pulse of America, the detour that one family's GPS directed them to take that took up an entire night. We're back in 90 seconds. Don't miss this new video here of a high-speed chase in Texas. A man in a stolen tractor-trailer tearing through some neighborhoods there, running over stop signs and an electrical post before stopping and then running away on foot. State troopers found 18 undocumented migrants crammed into the back of that truck. They're still looking for that driver who ran. Authorities still investigating a fire in an e-bike repair shop in New York City early this morning that left 4 people dead and 5 more recovering from injuries. That fire spreading to apartments above the shop where battery charging and electrical violations had been found before. 13 people have died this year in New York City due to lithium-ion battery fires. Taking you live to the White House now. Hours ago, the First Lady hosting a roundtable there on reproductive health. It's one of several events planned this week to mark 1 year since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. The First Lady met with the women who said they were denied medical care because of their state laws post-Roe. They were joined by the director of the White House Gender Policy Council. Looking ahead now, Senate Democrats plan to introduce what they call 4 common-sense abortion bills throughout the week. Then on Friday, the president and vice president will join the DNC for an event with 3 of the country's largest reproductive rights groups. On Saturday, that marks 1 year since the Supreme Court's decision, the vice president will deliver a speech highlighting abortion access as one of the key parts of the Biden-Harris 2024 platform. The U.S. Preventative Services Task Force now recommends that U.S. adults ages 19 to 64 be screened for anxiety disorders. The announcement published today in the medical journal JAMA. Older adults were not included in the medical experts' recommendation, though. The group continues to recommend that all adults be screened for major depressive disorder. According to the American Psychiatric Association, anxiety disorders are the most common of mental disorders and affect nearly 30% of adults at some point in their lives. But anxiety disorders are treatable. Treatment helps most people lead normal, productive lives. New tonight, President Biden says he believes there's a, quote, real threat of Russia using tactical nuclear weapons. That comment coming days after Vladimir Putin said he was moving the first batch of those weapons to Belarus. He said they'll be sending more by the end of the year. The decision happening days after Ukraine reported significant progress in its counteroffensive. And in another development, it appears that Putin is becoming more aggressive against his enemies. The New York Times reporting that he tried to have a Russian defector killed on U.S. soil in 2020. The former CIA informant lived in Florida at the time and had previously been a high-ranking Russian intelligence official. Now, in light of that news, another country now announcing plans to limit diplomatic ties.
The principal problem with the proposed second Russian embassy in Canberra is its location. This location sits directly adjacent to Parliament House. The government has received clear national security advice that this would be a threat to our national security. Russian officials have not responded to these new developments. The Texas State Senate met today to set the impeachment trial rules for Attorney General Ken Paxton. His wife, State Senator Angela Paxton, said she would carry out her duties in her husband's trial. He is temporarily suspended, accused of abusing his office's powers and retaliating against whistleblowers. Now, it's not clear if Angela Paxton will recuse herself from that vote. Developing now, Tropical Storm Brett no longer expected to become a hurricane. The National Hurricane Center predicting it will remain a strong tropical storm when it moves into the Caribbean later this week. Right now, max sustained winds are 40 miles per hour, but the storm is moving faster, meaning we could see the first tropical storm watches issued as soon as tonight. Meantime, the continental U.S. dealing with another chaotic day of weather. Take a look at these images here. The Storm Prediction Center's a new risk map there as well, showing a severe storm threat for about 5 million people. That includes New Orleans. And along the Gulf Coast, communities drying out there today after some intense rain on Monday. Water levels got so high that first responders had to use drones to locate people trapped by all that flooding. And the extreme heat also taking its toll. As we told you earlier, almost an entire state under an excessive heat warning. That means it could feel as hot as 115 degrees. Melanie Torrey is in Austin, Texas tonight and explains how quickly it can become very dangerous.
Parks and sport courts deserted, and honestly, it's a good thing. Even if you're young, strong, and healthy, you're susceptible to heat illness. Austin Travis County EMS responded to more than 50 heat-related calls and adults just last week.
Central Texans are doing what they can to brave the heat. For many, the only options are staying indoors or hitting the pool. That's exactly what Drew Castillo is doing.
Even in the shade, even with a fan, even with water, it feels kind of like a little icky.
We found him dousing himself in sunscreen and heading to the water for relief.
When we're coming out in the sun like this, it's sunscreen, a lot of water. We've got several bottles of water with us, so we like to stay hydrated. We're a bunch of hydro homies.
Yeah, it's like really unpleasant.
Not only unpleasant, but dangerous too. According to Austin Public Health, in 2019, more than 800 people visited area hospitals due to heat illness. 75% of those patients were men, and most between the ages of 3 and 39. Going to show not just kids or the elderly are at risk. The best thing you can do is stay safe indoors.
Being an inside kid, which is funny that you've caught me outside, turning my Nest thermostat as low as it'll go and fighting with Austin Energy wanting me to keep it up and come to the pool.
And if you must go out, pre-hydrate. Wear light, loose clothing, sunscreen, and hats, and take frequent breaks.
I've been living in Austin for like 20 years now or something. It feels so much hotter than usual.
That was Melanie Torrey reporting. Right now, Texas is asking people to conserve electricity in order to protect its electrical grid. The grid's operator, known as ERCOT, says an unusual number of coal or natural gas power plants are offline. They're predicting the state could set another record for energy use today. Google has been sued yet again, this time by the largest U.S. newspaper publisher. Gannett claims Google and its parent company Alphabet have illegal monopolies in ad technology that lead to less revenue for publishers and Google's competitors and more money for Google. The CEO of Gannett says Google has demolished the digital advertising marketplace. Google says the claims are simply wrong. Gannett here is seeking a trial by jury. New tonight, some good news from the housing market. U.S. home building surging in May, far beyond expectations. The number of permit applications for new construction was expected to drop slightly, but instead, it's up by 22%. Experts say the increase likely because of the drop in existing home inventory. Fewer people have chosen to move as interest rates climbed. And an update here on renting as well for you. Rent increases slowing again for the 12 months in a row, but the cost to rent a single-family home remains above the Fed's inflation target. It's still, as you see here, 3.7% higher than last year, a whopping 26% higher than before the pandemic. So to come here on the National Desk, how a GPS error caused a family to sleep in their car while waiting for help from some officials. The National Desk taking the pulse of America, and we start in Oregon now with a move to incorporate artificial intelligence into 311 calls.
During a meeting Thursday, Portland's Bureau of Emergency Communications discussed a rollout of AI technology to address high call volumes.
Where a automated attendant will answer the phone on non-emergency, and based on the answers, using artificial intelligence, and that's kind of a scary word for us at times, but using artificial intelligence will determine if that caller needs to speak to an actual call taker.
We asked people who live in Portland how they feel about introducing AI to take some of these calls.
I think it could be definitely a positive thing if the AI can kind of speed up the responses and get people what they need quicker. But then on the other hand, if it's not as personal to someone's emergency, that could be kind of discomforting to some folks.
This is as far as a Lyons family got Saturday night heading home from the coast. They live in Exeter, but first they had to drive Kim's mother home to Porterville.
One of the roads that we ended up going down that Google Maps told us to go down was, I guess it just got muddy. You couldn't tell when you were going down the road. It was really pitch black outside.
Just after 10 o'clock, the Lyons were stuck somewhere in rural Tulare County. Lyons called 911 and AAA. The CHP dispatcher and tow truck driver both said it would be a couple hours before they could get there. A tow truck driver said it was too wet and he couldn't drive in until morning. A second call to the CHP didn't go well. Another vehicle got stuck a few hundred feet away. Both spent the night sleeping in their vehicles.
Bear was born with end-stage kidney failure. He's starting dialysis this month. When Dell Children's opened their pediatric abdominal transplant center, the Soboralskis expected Bear would go through the entire process close to home. But 8 months later, the center pressed pause.
When we got the phone call that the Dell Children's Transplant Center was going to be removing Bear from the list due to a temporary voluntary shutdown, it was hard.
In a statement, Dell Children's says the program is on hold while they recruit more staff. They hope to reopen in 2024. Adding, quote, "We have partnered with University Health in San Antonio and other transplant centers to assist with referrals of patients to obtain transplant surgery." Moving wait lists cost the Soboralskis 6 months as Bear repeated evaluations and testing in Houston. He just got back on the transplant list last month.
Still to come, progress on two big highway closures, the chemical spill on I-75 in Florida, and how soon I-95 will reopen in Pennsylvania. We're back in 90 seconds. Right now, a major Florida highway is still closed following a crash and chemical spill this morning. A tractor trailer there overturning on I-75 near Gainesville, spilling that chemical styrene. A traffic stop in both directions were blocked earlier. The cause of the crash still under investigation. Meantime, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation updating the timeline to open temporary lanes along the I-95 collapse. They now expect that to happen this weekend, well ahead of schedule. The 3 lanes will be open while crews construct a permanent bridge. The replacement overpass will take about 3 months to build. Now, before the tanker truck crash just over a week ago, that stretch of highway saw more than 160,000 commuters a day, a very busy road. Developing now, France is looking into possible corruption surrounding the 2024 Paris Olympics. Investigators searched the organizers' headquarters today. It's the 3rd organizer in a row to be investigated for corruption. Multiple International Olympic Committee members were removed in the past due to vote-buying allegations. That's going to do it for now. Don't forget to join me again tonight for the evening edition of the National Desk. Check your local listings for times. I'm Eugene Ramirez. Thanks for watching.